Robservations with Robert Meyer Burnett.
Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your Master of Fun and Wonder, your Viceroy of Verisimilitude, your Sommelier of Sci-Fi and Cinema, your Archbishop of Banterbury, your Evangelist of Imagination, and of course, your existential, Mr. Rogers. That's right. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Me, Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert Meyer Burnett. And I am robcasting it. You imagination connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek singularity community. This, my friends, and enemies, and anyone really, is a very special show. This is a very special show because April 14th marks my YouTube anniversaries. This is my 6th anniversary being on YouTube as a, I don't know, Mike Bodden called me an AM morning DJ today. I would just like to say that I'm an imagination connoisseur, but I first appeared on YouTube on a show on AMC Heroes 6 years ago today with the late, great John Schnepp and John Campia. So today is my 6th YouTube anniversary, which is pretty special. I'm surprised I'm still here. I didn't know whether I was going to be here. I didn't even expect to have my own YouTube channel, but here we are. And not only do I have my own YouTube channel, this is the 666th episode of Robservations, the show about something. Today, obviously, it's about someone, or I guess something. We are going to talk about pop culture's greatest antagonists. And who might that be? But everyone's favorite creature you love to hate, being you may feel sorry for, somebody to both fear and respect. I'm, of course, referring to Old Scratch himself, Satan. We're going to talk about Satan, the devil. What's up with the devil? Why the devil? Why 666, the number of the beast? Maybe you want a job at Thorn Industries. I would say don't take it. When they give those chips in your palms or in your brain or whatever, are you going to take that, or is that going to be the number of the beast? If somebody shows up with a contract and says, sign right here, even Elizabeth said, if somebody shows up on your show right now with a contract offering you the world, don't sign it. You know what I always say? You don't get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate. And when you're signing a contract, remember, the devil is the prince of lies. Whatever guise he shows up in, don't believe him. Don't trust him. You will get screwed. But anyway, I figured it is the 666th show. The final Spotify playlist will be going online after now. I've obviously had the early Spotify playlist going on. I figured I'd give people one last opportunity today to fire in suggestions. So if you have a song you don't think I've put on the list, and remember, a lot of people, I was having this conversation with the Richard the other day. I said, listen, brah, if I was going to do like a Halloween playlist, I'd put like The Damned's Grimly Fiendish on it or something. Off Phantasmagoria. But you can't do that. The song has to be about specifically the devil. Like in The Exorcist, it claims to be the devil himself. I know, Pazuzu. Anyway, but I really wanted to actually just touch on today The devil is a recurring motif in all whether it's literature, whether it's art, whether it's movies. The devil has been an omnipresent force in Western civilization. And I want to figure out why. Why is that? What about the devil do we find so, well, at least appealing from a storytelling standpoint? I don't want to meet the devil. I don't want to do business with the devil. I hope I never meet the devil in his realm. Although that's probably inevitable. Who are we kidding? But anyway, so this is not only a celebration of the 666th show of Robservations, but I figured I'd throw a little discussion your way about old Scratch himself, the first of the fallen, Lucifer Morningstar, if you're a Neil Gaiman fan, fallen angel, the devil. Let's talk about it. But first, before I begin this conversation, I did want to point out there is another milestone for this channel that you, my friends, you are responsible for. Yesterday, the Burnettwork sailed over 5 million views. Now, a lot of people, a lot of cynics will be out there saying right now, well, come on, Rob, Gangnam Style has over 1 billion views. It's true. But this is a small channel, relatively speaking, on YouTube. We're going to cross 40,000 subscribers, I think, this month or next month. For me, that's pretty good. Hard-won subscribers. It takes a long time to build up subscribers on a YouTube channel. And let's face it, there's no reason to do a YouTube channel unless you're actually talking to people or you have people that follow you. So I want to thank you, a heartfelt thanks to everyone who has been a viewer of this channel, a supporter of this channel, who keeps me talking to you, that seems to enjoy this channel. Thank you all. And for me, having 5 million unique views on this channel blows me away. So I thank you. It really does mean a lot that you keep coming back here and we have the community that we have built. And I hope to continue to do this for as long as possible. So let's get into it. What about the devil? Well, I'll tell you. I found an article that I wanted to start with in our discussion, old Scratch, from Scientific American, published on October 29th, 2013, The Psychological Power of Satan, written by Piercarlo Valdisolo. Piercarlo Valdisolo. And that's going to be the first article I decide to share today. The Psychological Power of Satan, how a belief in pure evil shapes people's thinking. Justice Antonia Scalia and Kaiser Soze agree. The greatest trick the devil could ever pull is convincing the world he didn't exist. Fortunately for them, the devil does not seem to be effectively executing this plan. Some 70% of Americans, according to a 2007 Gallup poll, believe in his existence. This personification of evil has implications beyond the supernatural, influencing how we think about what it means for people to be pure evil. And as we prepare to playfully celebrate the wicked and depraved on Halloween night, or on the 666th episode of Robservations, it's worth pausing to reflect on some of the psychological and behavioral consequences of these beliefs. Evil has been defined as taking pleasure in the intentional inflicting of harm on innocent others. And ever since World War II, social psychologists have been fascinated by the topic. Many of the formative thinkers in the field, Carl Lewin, Stanley Milgram, Solomon Asch, were inspired by their experiences with and observations of what appeared to most people at the time to be the indisputable incarnation of pure evil. But what many saw as a clear demonstration of unredeemable and deep-seated malice, these researchers interpreted as more. In the words of Hannah Arendt, banal. From Milgram's famous Studies of Obedience to Zimbardo's prison study, psychologists have argued for the roots of evil actions in quite ordinary psychological causes. This grounding of evil in ordinary as opposed to extraordinary phenomena has led some to describe the notion of pure evil as a myth, a misguided understanding of human nature deriving both from specific socio-cultural traditions as well as a general tendency to understand others' behavior as a product solely of their essence, their soul, as opposed to a more complicated combination of environmental and individual forces. The issue of whether pure evil exists, however, is separate from what happens to our judgments and our behavior when we believe in its existence. It is this question to which several researchers have recently begun to turn: how we measure people's beliefs in pure evil, BPE, and what consequences does such a belief have on our response to wrongdoers. According to this research, one of the central features of BPEs is evil's perceived immutability. Evil people are born evil. They cannot change. Two judgments follow from this perspective. One, evil people cannot be rehabilitated, and two, the eradication of evil requires only the eradication of all the evil people. Following this logic, the researchers tested the hypothesis that there would be a relationship between BPE and the desire to aggress towards and punish wrongdoers. Researchers have found support for this hypothesis across several papers containing multiple studies and employing diverse methodologies. BPE predicts such effects as harsher punishments for crimes. Examples: murder, assault, theft. Stronger reported support for the death penalty, and decreased support for criminal rehabilitation. Follow-up studies corroborate these findings, showing that BPE also predicts the degree to which participants perceive the world to be dangerous and vile, the perceived need for preemptive military aggression to solve conflicts, and reported support for torture. Regardless of whether the devil actually exists, belief in the power of human evil seems to have significant and important consequences for how we approach solving problems of real-world wrongdoing. When we see people's antisocial behavior as the product of an enduring and powerful malice, we see few options behind a comprehensive and immediate assault on the perpetrators. They cannot be helped, and any attempts to do so would be a waste of time and resources. But if we accept the message from decades of social psychological research that at least some instances of violence and malice are not the result of pure evil, that otherwise decent individuals can, under circumstances, be compelled to commit horrible acts, even atrocities, then the results of these studies serve as an important cautionary tale. The longer we cling to strong beliefs about the existence of pure evil, the more aggressive and antisocial we become. And we may be aggressing towards individuals who are, in fact, redeemable. Individuals who are not intrinsically and immutably motivated by the desire to intentionally cause harm to others. That may be the greatest trick the devil has ever pulled. I like that. Is there true pure evil? Is it immutable? Does it exist forever and always? An interesting question, certainly. I, of course, don't know the answer, but I did find that kind of interesting, kind of an interesting look. Now, when I was in college, I read a book by Carl Jung called Man and His Symbols. Although me and my roommate Todd Stanley used to sing it. We would say, man and his symbols, man and his symbols, as we carried the book to school. I don't know why we decided to sing the title of Carl Jung's book, but we did. So I was wondering, I gave a cursory glance to things, and I found, actually, I didn't mean to switch let me go back to, didn't mean to go I didn't mean to switch that back to the old thing. I was wondering, did Carl Jung ever sort of say anything about the devil? And because I knew he did, but I'm like, is there something I could share about Mr. Jung and the devil? Something quick, something easy, more seductive, like the dark side of the force. Maybe. So I did. I found a little thing that I wanted to share. It's just, again, brief. I did a little bit of look-see. This comes from the Journal of Religion and Health, Volume 16, Number 3, from July 1977. And I would like to share it with you now. The image of the devil in Carl Gustav Jung's psychology. This is a preview. Roberts Avens wrote this. Journal of Religion and Health, Volume 16, Number 3, 1977. Since the Renaissance, Western civilization has pursued the cult of a rational and conscious ego that believes that it can do, know, and organize everything. Never mind that, for example, a Bismarck, the great German chancellor who tried to follow the slogan, "Where there is a will, there's a way," was constantly overcome by fits of crying. Once man, the splendid biped, was placed squarely on the center stage, he could conceive of no other function in this world beyond what his ego defined for him. As a consequence, the larger macrocosmic setting that was always vital for the Greeks receded to the periphery, and concurrently all non-rational values, including religion, lost their numinous character. The case of religion is rather instructive. Its demotion to a system of collective ethical behavior interspersed with warm inner feelings, perhaps for the first time, made us suspicious that it is possible to become ill from too much morality. The process of narrowing now seems to have run its course. For one thing, gods and demons that modern science had expelled from nature have found a new, though less spacious, abode in the human psyche. Above all is the reality of evil that has become the source of deep and uncanny fascination for modern man. That, according to Jung, is the psychological situation in the world today. Some call themselves Christian and imagine that they can trample so-called evil underfoot by merely willing to. Others have succumbed to it and no longer see the good. Evil today has become the visible great power. We must add, however, that fascination with evil and the satanic in general is not necessarily an aberration of a sick mind. It may be the averse and neglected side of the thing called religion, trying to attract our attention. Jung suggests that in order to find a way out of this quagmire, we learn not to succumb to anything at all. In particular, we must relinquish the illusion of absolute certainty as to the nature of good and evil. Well, I thought that was kind of neat, and I tend to agree with that. The universe is a crazy place. Are we going to, it's funny, I at one point I was working with Mark Altman before he made Free Enterprise on a screenplay that I really wanted to make. I wanted to write The Jewish Exorcist, because to me, The Exorcist is my favorite horror movie of all time, which, by the way, is not about Pazuzu. The way I've always read it is that it's the devil, just like one of the psychologists in the movie says that Reagan McNeil, the entity in Reagan McNeil, claims to be the devil himself. I always saw it that way. I understand John Borman came along and made him Pazuzu. Maybe Pazuzu was mentioned in the book. I don't remember. It's been so long since I read William Peter Blatty's novel. But the way I've always read The Exorcist, it was about the devil himself. And to me, when we were writing this movie, so I wanted to make The Jewish Exorcist, and I wanted it to deal with the roots of anti-Semitism, and it was called Day of Atonement, and it was going to be set during the days of awe between Yom Kippur and between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the New Year, and then the Day of Atonement, and it was pointed out to me, and I wanted to give a supernatural reason for anti-Semitism, and I thought it was going to be great. But then someone pointed something out to me, and I forget who it was, but they were absolutely correct. They're like, Rob, if you write a story where anti-Semitism, because the Asmodeus and Lilith from the Yeni Welt, the mirror realm, it would allow evil to run rampant if the Lamed Vav, the righteous men, the Jewish righteous men, were all destroyed by the supernatural. If you did that, if you tell that story, you absolve anti-Semitism, you absolve mankind from that kind of hatred. If you hang a supernatural reasoning behind anti-Semitism, then humans are absolved of this hatred. And it's something that never occurred to me, but that person whoever that person was, and I don't remember, was absolutely correct. There's nobody more, there can be no entity in the world more evil and more destructive to one another, to other human beings, than other human beings are. I mean, I always thought, having conversations with my religious friends who do believe in the afterlife, especially the afterlife in Judeo-Christian religion, eternal damnation and all that, even I would say, well, eventually you must get used to it. Eternal damnation, it happened yesterday, it's going to happen tomorrow. And I always thought that it was always kind of based on our corporeal existence. That if there truly is a hell of some kind, and it's a place we're going to go if we're damned, that it would be far more interesting, because you're not going to have your body anymore necessarily. It's not like you're going to be working in salt mines, or just they're going to be flaying the skin off of you. Or maybe they will, I don't know. But I just thought that all of that, the whole afterlife to me seemed very corporeal. It was based on how we still saw ourselves like, oh, we have to frolic at the foot of the Lord, or you're going to be, tossed into the eternal hellfire. But that would still mean we would have bodies, which I always thought was sort of, I don't know if I ever really bought that. I think it would be more of an existential horror, like going into the total perspective vortex in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, seeing yourself in relation to the rest of the universe. Well, not all of us are Zaphod Beeblebrox, and finding out how utterly insignificant you are. Well, that's hell. I often thought that hell could also be maybe being at the DMV for the rest of eternity, waiting for your number to be called, and it's never called. You just have to sit there for the rest of time and watch people keep getting called in front of you. Anyway, however that works, the character of the devil, as personified, anthropomorphized by certain people, actors and authors and all that, I always thought was pretty cool. Or even artists. What does it look to? What happens when you find yourself stuck in hell or wherever? Obviously, everything from Hieronymus Bosch. There's been so many depictions of what it means to be in hell, and there's so many I couldn't even begin to start delving into it. But there's a lot of them. I found something interesting though as I was looking around for pieces of art to perhaps add into all of this, which I thought could actually be pretty cool. And I figured I would share it with you because it's beautiful, and yet at the same time has a transgressive erotic element to it. And let's see if I can. It's an article, and this was in. Actually, it's very cool. It's an article that I thought I would just show some images. The 11 most nightmarish depictions of hell in art history. And I figured, who doesn't want to see that, by God? And let me just set this up and pull it up for you. Now, this was in artsy.net, and this was published on November 1st, 2018, and Alexa Gothard came up with this. I'm going to bring these up. The 11 most nightmarish depictions of hell in art history. And I know you can't wait for this. So, this first one, and by God, how can you not love this? The famed medieval Italian poet Dante Alighieri had a mesmerizingly grotesque imagination, especially when it came to conceiving the horrors of hell. Let me get this in there so you can see all that. Ravenous monsters hungry for sinners fill the pages of Inferno, the first section of his epic poem, The Divine Comedy, penned in the early 1300s. In one canto, the crimson-eyed, three-headed beast Cerberus, who guards the gates of the underworld, tears the spirits, flays them with clawed hands, and a ravenous maw. While the writers frighten... Actually, I wonder if I can put this down and maybe leave the pictures up while I read each article. I can do that, can't I? I'm sure I can. And why don't I? So you can enjoy the images while I read the descriptions. I mean, look at this image. Again, Is this the devil, exactly the devil? I don't know, but my God, what an amazing image this is. Fantastic. While the writer's frighteningly vivid depictions of hell's 9 circles might be literature's most famous, artists have also composed visions of the underworld that are just as harrowing, if not more so. Western art history teems with hellscapes, compositions showing all manner of physical, psychological, and spiritual torment. Many build directly on Dante's writings, while others draw from descriptions of damnation in Christian scripture, meant to intimidate believers into virtuousness. Later artists responded to the infernal realities of the war on their own emotional turmoil or personal hell. Below, we take a tour of the most chilling interpretations of hell from Dante's time to today. Some are macabre, others delightfully absurd, but all explore a heady mix of human fear, guilt, and suffering. This one's pretty good. Get this up here. This is Giotto, and if I get the pronunciations wrong, please forgive me. Giotto, The Last Judgment. Florentine painter Giotto had a flair for the dramatic. Like most artists working at the dawn of the 14th century, he primarily painted frescoes for the private chapels of wealthy families, yet his paintings are utterly unique. The biblical characters that fill his compositions aren't flat and stylized like those of his Byzantine forebears. Instead, they writhe with red-blooded energy and fierce human emotion. Nowhere is this more apparent than in his Scrovegni Chapel in Padua. At the back of the chapel lies one of art history's most impressive paintings of the Last Judgment, the momentous event described in the New Testament when, at the end of the world, God either shepherds the dead to heaven or banishes them to the fiery underworld. The religious text doesn't leave many clues as to what hell might look like, so Giotto built on past artistic interpretations as well as his own fertile imagination. In the lower right-hand corner of the fresco, a gluttonous horned monster, likely Satan, stands at the gates of hell, devouring sinners, then unceremoniously excreting them. Such cruel and unusual punishments abound. Naked men and women are dragged down to hell by fearsome black demons, where they are spit-roasted and speared or stuffed into deep pits. Dante himself likely visited the fresco as Giotto painted it. According to historian Giorgio Vasari, the two were dear friends. Dante began writing his Divine Comedy around the time Giotto was painting the Arena Chapel. This is pretty dope, this next one here. Let's see if I can see. You can't. Well, you know what? Maybe I'll make this smaller so you can see the whole images. How about I do that? So I can. That's not the right one. I'm going to make this a little smaller so you can see everything in the frame. Okay, bring this down. There we go. Well, I wish I could make it bigger. Maybe I can make it a little bigger. Let's see. Well, give you a little bit more detail. So there you go. So this is by Jan van Eyck, The Last Judgment, and it was painted in 1440 to 1441. Working in the Netherlands over 100 years after Giotto, the pioneering art painter Jan van Eyck created his own Last Judgment scene on the right half of a diptych that also included the depiction of the crucifixion. While measuring only about 22 by 7 inches, the Last Judgment panel packs a bone-chilling punch thanks to Van Eyck's garish depiction of hell, which Metropolitan Museum of Art curator Marianne W. Ainsworth has described as diabolical invention. Beneath the outstretched arms of a giant and menacing skeleton tumbles a cascade of damned souls, each subjected to a different form of punishment. In one corner, a man screams in pain as he's disemboweled by a serpent. Elsewhere, a demon, part skull, part sharp-toothed jaguar, gnaws on a fleshy rump. The anguish here is so evocative that Ainsworth has characterized the scene as cacophonous. Viewers can almost hear the sounds of torture, the cracking and breaking of bones, the gnashing of teeth, the monsters relentless in their pursuit. Pretty neat, to be honest. See, then I have to go make this bigger. but what can you do? This one's worth making bigger. So bear with me. Let me make it bigger for you so you can see this. And then I'll put it down. There we go. There you go. You see that a little better? I think we can. That's a beautiful painting. Beautiful. This is Fra Angelico, The Pains of Hell, from The Last Judgment, circa 1431. Posthumously nicknamed the Angelic Painter by his acolytes, the Dominican friar Fra Angelico, known as Fra Giovanni during his lifetime, is somewhat ironically renowned for several of his visceral hellscapes. Perhaps his most important horrifying scene comes from a fresco depicting the Last Judgment, originally created for the Basilica of Santa Maria degli Angeli in Rome. It now hangs in Florence's Museum di San Marco. Here, the artist takes a cue from Dante, visualizing hell as a tenebrous cave where the damned, like Tenebrae, where the damned are grouped by their sins. Each of them has his own tailored brand of torture. For instance, those guilty of greed have melted gold coins poured down their throats, while those guilty of wrath are forced to incessantly fight each other. At the base of the fiery pit, Lucifer chomps on human bodies as he simultaneously bathes in a soup of melting souls dutifully stirred by a cohort of demons. I mean, come on, man. Now, here we go. Hieronymus Bosch, The Garden of Earthly Delights, 1490 to 1500. There can't be a discussion of hellscapes without Hieronymus Bosch, whose spellbinding masterwork, The Garden of Earthly Delights, rivals the fame of Dante's Inferno. The Dutch painter came of age in the mid-1400s during the Protestant Reformation, when Christians began to interpret the Word of God for themselves rather than rely on the Church as an intermediary. Bosch incorporated this approach in his painting depicting heaven and hell through rollicking, chaotic scenes set against a contemporary Dutch backdrop. Rather than the fiery pits mentioned in the Bible or explored in depth in Inferno, Bosch shows hell as a raucous battlefield teeming with horrifying, surrealistic creatures who take pleasure in torturing their human opponents. The painting's fame may be largely due to the proliferation of mesmerizingly odd details. A dismembered foot hangs like a prize from the helmet of a spiny bird monster. Other sinners are stretched taut across giant instruments and played by beady-eyed demons, or eaten and then pooped out by their aggressors. And how cool is that? Let's see if this will... we can get this out, make this one a little smaller. Oh, that's pretty good. This is Peter Bruegel, the Elder. Peter Bruegel, the Elder, Dule Griet. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Mad Meg from 1561. While he's best known for homely peasant scenes, Dutch master Peter Bruegel, the Elder, also had a knack for shocking his audience. Like a director of horror films, the painter tried to appeal to all the senses in order to arouse fear and create pleasure at the same time, Bruegel biographer Leen Hoot has written. Nowhere is this more apparent than in his 1561 canvas Dule Griet, Mad Meg, which takes a cue from Bosch and explores hell through the lens of contemporary Flemish culture. The painting depicts the folkloric character of Dule Griet, the leader of an all-female army on a quest to pillage hell. Her strength is underlined by her massive scale. She dwarfs both her compatriots and her opponents, a multitude of fantastical demons that dot the otherwise familiar Dutch landscape. Bruegel has depicted the underworld as an eerie fusion of fantasy and reality. Griet seems to run toward a literal gaping mouth of hell, its scaly skin resembling bricks in the surrounding architecture. Instead of devouring the dead, the monsters of this hell battle flesh and blood warriors. Some scholars have also read the painting as an exploration of 16th century Netherlandish gender dynamics. See, it never ends, people. It goes on even back in 1568. A 1568 book of Proverbs provides context. 1 woman makes a din, 2 women a lot of trouble, 3 an annual market, 4 a quarrel, 5 an army, and 6... and against 6, the devil himself has no weapon. In this way, the painting can be read as a study of female power. Is Greet a greedy agent of chaos or a heroic victor who isn't afraid to go head-to-head with the devil? I don't know, but I think that's pretty damn badass, if you ask me. I like it. I think this is a very, very cool painting. And it really is. Uh-oh. I didn't mean to do that. Let me go back to where I was, and now I've screwed it all up. But here is another one. Let me make it bigger. I really like this painting. This is from William Blake, The Punishment of the Thieves, 1824 to 27. While the soft hues and undulating lines of this watercolor by British artist William Blake might not seem immediately scream inferno, the closer look reveals a particularly garish manner of suffering. The scene comes from a series of works Blake produced to illustrate an edition of the Divine Comedy. Blake took the commission, according to writer Maria Popova, because Dante's contempt for materialism and the way power warps morality resonated with the eccentric 19th century artist who believed that the political and social climate in England was defined by greed. Here, Blake depicts a scene from Cantos 24 and 25, where it is explained that snakes steal and manipulate the bodies of thieves, who must then search in vain for a home for their soul. Here, monstrous serpents strangle, penetrate, and rope around the thieves' Rubenesque bodies as they are dragged underwater. That's pretty dope. This painting is just, it's unbelievable. This is John Martin's Pandemonium from 1841. It could be said that 19th century British painter John Martin's favorite subject was doom. Man, I gotta tell you, I would love to see a movie with this image in it, or something along the lines of this image. My God, is this striking. Over the course of his career, he painted copious depictions of hell, as well as other fiery end-of-the-world scenes, and he did it with dramatic panache. Martin based this hellscape on English poet John Milton's 1667 masterwork, Paradise Lost, in which hell is dubbed Pandemonium. Martin's version of Pandemonium is a deserted, red-hot world of torment, helmed by an armored Satan. In the foreground, the devil raises his arms as he calls unseen rebel angels to action. This version of hell might have looked sinisterly familiar to Martin's London contemporaries. In fact, the massive, intimidating building that Satan faces borrows architectural elements from some of the city's most famous edifices, including the towering gates of Somerset House and the arcade of Carlton House Terrace. I mean, wow. How cool is that? Pretty dope. This is an amazing painting as well. Unfortunately, let me make it smaller so you can see the whole thing, because it is truly a beautiful piece of work. I mean, I wish unfortunately we could here we go. Here's the whole image, so you can see the whole image. This is a great I love this. This is by William Adolphe Bergerot, Dante and Virgil from 1850. Two sinners duking it out in William Adolphe Bergerot's depiction of hell appealed to the vampire-obsessed among us. The French painter concocted this Dante-inspired scene in hopes of winning the coveted Prix de Rome. Dante enjoyed renewed popularity during this time. Fellow Romantic painters were similarly enthralled. The poet provided deliciously dramatic fodder for theatrical canvases. Bergerot chose to zoom in on two damned souls from the epic poem in order to emphasize their physical pain. Surrounded by writhing sinners, Dante and Virgil look on as Gianni Sciacci, a character guilty of committing fraud, viciously bites the neck of Capocchio, a heretic and alchemist. Inferno describes constant fighting as one of hell's many punishments. The painter pays particular attention to his subjects' nude bodies. Dramatically lit, their muscles and expressions strain in utter agony. Writing at the time, critic Théophile Gautier described the duo's strange fury rendered magnificently through muscles, nerves, tendons, and teeth. Only the bald, bat-winged demon hovering over them seems to take any pleasure in the scene. I love this painting, and what an incredible depiction of bodies writhing in torment or pain. Or this painting is stunning to me. I'm blown away by this painting. This is really interesting. This one is really great. This is Edvard Munch, he of the Scream. Self-portrait in hell. Nordic symbolist Edvard Munch's oeuvre is defined by very convincing representations of psychological anguish, many of which are self-portraits. In this work, he uses the concept of hell to underline his own suffering by placing his sickly nude body within a blackish-red environment, the color of stoked flames. Even as a child, Munch remembered being plagued by melancholy and promises of a hellish afterlife. Disease and insanity were the black angels on guard at my cradle, he wrote of his youth. I always felt I was treated unjustly, without a mother, sick, and with threatened punishment in hell hanging over my head. What a bummer. I wouldn't want to live like that. This one, Franz von Struck, Inferno from 1908. Once again, let me make this bigger. So I didn't really think this through when I wanted to sort of show you these paintings, but hey, bear with me. What can I tell you? It's cool, right? So there we go. Let me adjust that more. Franz von Struck, Inferno. When Franz von Struck first exhibited Inferno at the Met in 1909, the New York Times praised the work's sovereign brutality. Indeed, the piece shocked and awed audiences with its raw depiction of eternal damnation, cementing the German symbolist's reputation as a visionary artist unafraid to explore the dark side of the psyche, according to the museum. Stuxworth frequently emphasizes both the physical and psychological pain of his subjects. Across this canvas, the artist shows only the wrenching bodies and contorted faces of several sinners, rather than a nightmarish overview of hell, in order to emphasize their personal suffering with a dissonant color scheme that punctuates their distress. Perhaps the most striking manifestation of mental torment comes from a female figure whose wide eyes glow unnervingly from the background, communicating fear in the face of her terrible fate. Yeah, this one is awesome too. This painting, I love this. This, Jake and Dinos Chapman, this painting is called Fucking Hell from 2008. British artists Jake and Dinos Chapman have made a career of shocking viewers by fusing dark humor and the grotesque. Some pieces completely dispense with comedy, though, in favor of emphasizing history's atrocities. This is the case with Fucking Hell, an adaptation of the duo's 1999 piece Hell, which ironically went up in flames in a warehouse fire. The massive installation contains 9 vitrines filled with 60,000 toy soldiers. Despite being forged from miniature toys, a closer look inside reveals unimaginable carnage. I guess it's a painting. In the monumental, chaotic battle scene that unfolds, an army of skeletons, mutants, and aliens battle Nazis. Awesome. While it's unclear which side is winning, the swastika-bearing soldiers are certainly getting their due. In this tableau, they have become the massacred. The Nazis practiced genocide on everyone they thought was inferior, Jake Chapman said of the work. What we've done is to mirror that. The Nazis are being recycled within their own mechanism. For the Chapman brothers, hell on earth, engendered by the long history of human violence. Well, I just figured that would be kind of fun, a little skip through art history to show you some images of hell and the devil himself. Which was pretty great. Now, I'm sure you all are tired of hearing me talk about other things. Let's get to it. What do we really care about? Movies! Movies about the devil. We all have our favorite movies about the devil. Some of them, what are the best depictions of the devil in pop culture? Well, I have to say one of my favorites and one of the first I ever encountered was the Howling Man episode of The Twilight Zone. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen the Howling Man episode of The Twilight Zone, but basically a guy finds a castle, and he's given shelter for the night, and the people in the castle say, look, when you hear the man howling in the basement, don't pay him no mind, don't let him out. So our traveler, of course, hears the wailing and goes down, and this kindly man's like, please let me out of here. You know, I'm in prison here. You got to let me out. And of course, long story short, as you might imagine, the end of the Twilight Zone episode is the dude lets him out, and we watch this. It's a great transformation as he passes columns and changes into a classical depiction of the devil with horns and a pitchfork kind of, and a cape, and evil is once again freed into the world. That was the first, I think that was the first depiction of the devil that I ever remember seeing on film. But I figured, I was like, there must be some article. Vulture had an article that they published that I thought was fun. And it was the 10 greatest pop culture devils of all time. Now, I don't necessarily agree with everything they have here, but I mean, it's pretty good as far as these things go. So I figured I'll share it. Why not? So let's do that. And this list is actually from 2007, believe it or not, 2007, which I kind of thought was kind of neat that it's from 2007. And this is interesting. Tonight marks the debut of the CW's Kevin Smith-directed, Vulture-approved comedy Reaper, in which 21-year-old slacker Brett Harrison finds out that his parents sold his soul to the devil, Ray Wise, before he was born. I mean, can you imagine? Come on, parents. The devil was Ray Wise, by the way. On the show, Wise does admirable work as the Prince of Darkness, but his is just the latest in a long line of top-notch TV and movie Satans. When our Kid Nation coverage inevitably earns both of your Vulture editors a permanent vacation in the fiery pits of hell, who would we most like to see in charge? Here's our list of the 10 greatest pop culture devils of all time. Now, they had to put Ray Wise as from Reaper from 2007 on this list as the dapper devil-may-care devil in Reaper. Ray Wise, formerly of 24 and, of course, Twin Peaks, is a deadpan lord of the underworld. But when his anger boils over, watch out. This is one I absolutely agree with. Peter Cook in the original Bedazzled. It's so good. As breezy George Spigot, the devil that bedevils Dudley Moore's Faustian Stanley Moon in this swingin' London classic, baby. Cook is Ray Wise's soft-spoken predecessor. There was a time when I used to get lots of ideas, he muses. I thought up the 7 deadly sins in one afternoon. The only thing I've come up with recently is advertising. Another great one, Dave Grohl in Tenacious D in The Pick of Destiny. The idea of Nirvana's Beatkeeper as the hard-rocking eternal punisher of unrepentant souls certainly sounds awesome, right? If you're one of the 27 people who actually saw this film in a theater, perhaps you can let us know. The Pick of Destiny rules, by the way. Rules. The robot devil in Futurama, played by Dan Castellaneta, the stainless steel Beelzebub, shines in Futurama's final episode. The devil's hands are idle playthings, in which he switches hands with Fry and utters the memorable lament, "Give me back my hands, these things are always touching me in places." I don't know about this one, but I'll give it to you. Billy Crystal in Deconstructing Harry. Prior to his appointment as the Lord of Darkness in Woody Allen's dirtiest ever film, Crystal's Lucifer was the head of a major film studio. Harvey Weinstein, anyone? Still, we're pretty sure we could count on him to make our stay in hell more comfortable. He even has an air conditioner because it fucks up the ozone layer. Robert De Niro is Louis Safier. Spoiler alert. One of the least surprising spoilers in history. P.S. Spoiler alert. Lou Safier. Get it? Lou Safier? Lucifer turns out to be Satan himself, played here as a preternaturally calm, ponytailed, hard-boiled egg-eating man with really long fingernails who stole the soul of 40s-era crooner Johnny Favorite. De Niro reportedly based the performance on an impression of Martin Scorsese. Number 4, Jack Nicholson in The Witches of Eastwick. In this adaptation of Updike's novel, Nicholson plays a rich, horny, devil incarnate, Daryl Van Horn, who uses his evil powers to score with 3 much younger women, all in the span of just 118 minutes. His performance was reportedly based on what he does on one of his more typical Tuesday nights. Number 3 on this list, Satan in South Park, bigger, longer, uncut. Trey Parker and Matt Stone's great movie musical refuses to make Satan the villain. Instead, he's the dignified but abused lover of a recently killed Saddam Hussein. How come you always want to make love to me from behind? Is it because you want to pretend I'm somebody else, he asks, to which Saddam replies, Satan, your ass is gigantic and red. Who am I going to pretend you are, Liza Minnelli? God love Trey and Matt. John Lovitz in Saturday Night Live. In his most memorable appearance as the ludicrously red-suited Mephistopheles, Lovitz took a breach of contract case to the People's Court. The sketch is made by Lovitz's straight-faced indignance in the face of daunting odds. Now you listen to me, I'm Mephistopheles, Prince of Darkness, he shouts. When I start harassing you, you'll know it. And finally, according to this Vulture list, Al Pacino in The Devil's Advocate is number 1. The movie didn't really live up to its potential as the Firm meets Exorcist hybrid it was pitched as. I don't know about that. I love The Devil's Advocate. But Pacino's scenery-chewing performance as John Milton, get it? The Manhattan attorney who just happens to be the Prince of Darkness ranks among his personal best and renders his entire supporting cast, including Keanu Reeves as a block of wood, pretty much inert. I'm maybe the last humanist, he barks at one point. The 20th century was entirely mine. I'm peaking. I'm a fan man. I got my nose down in the grindstone. And this notes, they say, note, if you think we forgot damn Yankees Ray Walston, you're wrong. He wasn't considered because we love the Yankees and therefore find this film's title both vulgar and offensive. Listen, gotta say, good list, but there are some others that I think are great. I love the anti-god, or the depiction of the anti-god, the devil, I guess, and I think it's a devil. I'll call him the devil. The devil. The devil, the scientific devil. Prince of Darkness. John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness. Another big influence on me. I love that depiction of the devil. I wish they could do more with it. If there's probably one movie I've ever wanted to see John Carpenter make a sequel to, it is Prince of Darkness. What happens when Lisa Blount comes out of that church? Why are things so dire that people are sending messages back through time to prevent her from coming out of that church in downtown LA? My mind has just, I mean, I've always wondered what happened. What happened at the end of that movie? I don't know, but I'd sure like to know. The Exorcist, of course. The Exorcist, of course, is my number 1. But also, lest we not forget, Rosemary's Baby. Rosemary's Baby is about a coven of witches, and they're so good at what they do, they actually win in the end. In the course of Rosemary's Baby, Satan himself depicted, well, we don't see him all. We don't see all of him. But we do watch Old Scratch himself come up, at least in a dreamlike state, have his way with Mia Farrow, while her husband, Rosemary Woodhouse, while her husband, Guy Woodhouse, stands by and watches. The ultimate cuck watches as the devil has his way and impregnates his wife. I mean, I understand men have cuck fantasies, but it all goes down to Guy Woodhouse watching his wife being raped by Satan. And successful. Like, his seed did find purchase. And she does give birth to the son of Satan at the end of Rosemary's Baby. Not only one of my favorite horror films, one of my favorite movies of all time. Of course, it's not like the corruptible Reagan McNeil. I mean, one of the most horrifying things. Remember, and I think one of the reasons that I love The Exorcist so much is when you think about The Exorcist, the movie is really about a Catholic priest. And I for whatever reason, being raised a Jew Maybe it was because my best friend when I was younger was Catholic, but I used to love to go to church. And I loved all the pomp and circumstance of Catholicism, but it always seemed to me like my favorite mythologies, whether it was vampire mythology or even, mythology about the devil, it always seemed like, let's put aside some of the more unsavory aspects of the Catholic Church. I always saw the Catholic Church when I was a kid, their uniform, like the priestly robes, the black and the white collars. I always saw that. I'm like, these were fatigues with dealing with supernatural. That Catholicism understood that the supernatural was real, and priests were always on the front line of that battle. That's why it was shocking to me when I was 5 years old and saw War of the Worlds for the first time. The first thing the aliens do, the first human being that they kill, is a Catholic priest. Lo, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Well, you know what you should fear? Martians, because they don't give a fuck about your beliefs. They're just no more priest. I was like, man, if the aliens can kill a priest, this movie, when I was 5 years old, I was like, I couldn't believe that. I couldn't believe it. I know I've talked about that on the show, but my God. So maybe that's why I have a soft spot, because when I was 5 years old, I couldn't believe aliens killed a priest. That wasn't cool. But, there's always the priests seem to always be on the front lines fighting evil. I mean, yes, when they're perpetrating evil, I don't want to get into that. But the fact that, for me, I always loved movies about priests fighting evil. I can't help it. It was something ingrained in me from an early age, and I still love it. And I think the greatest movie ever made about Catholic priests fighting evil is The Exorcist. I mean, come on. Amazing. Father Marin. You got to love it. Mercedes McCambridge is the voice of the devil. And I am the devil. Now kindly undo these straps. If you're the devil, why not make those straps disappear? That's much too vulgar display of power, Karis. I love this movie. I love The Exorcist because ultimately it's a film about morality and humanity. That truly, that humanity, one of the things I even love about the horror genre, I've always seen, despite the fact that there's all kinds of horrible movies like Last House on the Left, I don't mean horrible movies, but movies that depict the horrors of humanity, that ultimately the worst thing that can happen to human beings are other human beings. But somehow, the great evil from beyond, the great supernatural evils that exist in the world, human beings can find it within themselves to triumph over Old Scratch and his minions. And I always thought that was kind of uplifting, really. So, anyway, I don't know what that says about me, but I'll watch any movie with the devil and Catholic priests in it. So there you go. There's a little bit more insight into me. Now, the last thing that I want to cover, because I thought it was pretty cool, and I found, again, I'm going to get this list here, is books. That's right, books about the devil. I thought books about the devil are always something that, worth looking into. Obviously, I have a lot of books. I've read a lot in my life. And I want to talk about depictions of Satan in books. So this is a list. Again, I found this list on the internet, and I happen to pretty much agree with it. 20 devilish books, and this was published on abebooks.com. I don't know exactly when this was published on abebooks.com, but indeed it was. And so I wanted to, I thought it was a pretty good list, so let's check it out. Job, I love this book so much. Robert Heinlein's Job, A Comedy of Justice from 1984. One for atheists, as Heinlein shows unexpected visions of Satan, heaven, and hell. I love this book, by the way. It's great. The Mysterious Stranger from 1916, Mark Twain. Some Austrian boys meet an angel called Satan who educates them. A satire on religion. A book from 1895, The Sorrows of Satan by Marie Corelli. The devil comes to London and helps a starving novelist, a satire on Victorian life. Michael Moorcock. Oh, I love Michael Moorcock. Read a book called Behold the Man, but not if you're religious. Warhound and the World's Pain, a fantasy where Lucifer asks the hero to do God's work and find the Holy Grail. Of course, the famous book 1966 is Mikhail Bulgakov's The Master and the Margarita, Satan Brings Hell to Moscow, written during Stalin's show trials, suppressed for years. This book rules. Melmoth the Wanderer by Charles Robert Materne from 1820, a reworking of the Faustian Pact, an example of classic Gothic literature. Of course, Rosemary's Baby by Ira Levin. Levin's vision of Satanism in suburbia should not be read by mothers-to-be. From 1956, The Devil to Pay in the Backlands by João, I can't pronounce his name, Rosa. One of the best novels to emerge from Brazil. The devil is just part of the story. Of course, Good Omens. You can now watch the TV show. From 1990 by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. The World is Coming to an End. A very funny book indeed. By the way, I, Lucifer from 2003 by Glenn Duncan. Glenn Duncan is written. Please, somebody, would you adapt Glenn Duncan's The Last Werewolf trilogy? As far as I know, Ridley Scott and Associates owns that book. His company owns it. Please make it as a show. Hello, some streaming service. Listen to the Bobster. Let me tell you, The Last Werewolf, you got to make it. It's not easy being the fallen angel who takes over the body of a depressed writer. Dan Harris, co-writer of X-Men 2, Superman Returns. Dan Harris was going to make this movie at one point. Somebody, please make it. Me and the Devil Blues 1, The Unreal Life of Robert Johnson by Akira Hiramoto. The life of blues guitarist Robert Johnson, who sold his soul to the devil, is reimagined. The book Hell from 2009 by Robert Orland Butler. Definitely not Dante. A TV presenter endures a novel but hellish experience. John Updike's The Witches of Eastwick. Same with the movie. Falling Angel, which became Angel Heart by William Hortzberg. Butcher Bird by Richard Kadri, a San Francisco tattoo artist's journey to hell after being wounded by a demon. Needful Things by Stephen King. Leland Gaunt is an evil, scheming shopkeeper who turns a small town on its head. Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. Many see the Judge Holden character as demonic in this Western novel. The Monk from 1796 by Matthew Lewis. A Spanish monk is tempted by Matilda, an agent of the devil, into ungodly crimes. I mean, come on, 1796. Deathbird Stories by Harlan Ellison from 75. Written between 1960 and 1974. A collection of 19 scary stories of myth and evil. The Devil in Love by Jacques Cazot, an occult romance. Satan falls head over heels in love. So there's some books, and there ends our pop culture, little historical pop culture examination of the devil. I'd also like to recommend Inferno by Larry Niven and Jerry Pournelle. That's right, the science fiction writers. About a science fiction writer that goes to hell, basically falls out a window and goes to hell. So there you go. There's a little look at Satan. Episode 666 of Robservations. Celebrating, well, Satan in pop culture. What do you think? What do you think of the devil? Do you believe? Do you not believe? Do you want to believe? Up to you. You tell me. But thanks, all of you, once again. 5 million views for the channel. Almost 40,000 subscribers. And, of course, this being my 6th anniversary on YouTube. Couldn't do it without you. You know what else I couldn't do without you? Read your letters, which I'm going to do because there are a lot of them. So, my God, crazy. So let's look into your letters. Let's see what people have to say. This from Sheriff Carl, all the way from the PNW. Sheriff Carl says, all of his Infernal Hails, Rob and the Post-Geek Singularity. This is my first letter to the show, and what better time to do so than with the hailing of Satan. My personal history with Satan Goes back as far as I can remember. My family wasn't really religious per se, but we did go to Catholic Mass most weekends. It was definitely my mom's thing, and it was more about keeping up with the Holy Joneses than any authentic belief in the religion itself. But just as I was told about Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy, I was told God was real, heaven was real, therefore the devil and hell were real. I had a very simplistic idea of these concepts: be good and go to heaven, be bad and go to hell. God is watching, and God knows, but the devil is always there watching too. We used to do a family river rafting trip in the summers with a few other families. I remember I was probably about 4. While in our raft in the river, there was a giant hole on the land with a sign that read, Hell. Now, I couldn't read, but my brother told me what it said. I swelled up with fear and nearly shit my pants. I truly thought this was literally a hole to hell. I started kindergarten at St. John's. It was also the church I went to. In the 2nd grade, we did our daily prayer in the beginning of class. The teacher said that she prayed for the sick people who drew Satan on the church during the previous night. I'd never felt such a rush of both fear and intrigue. I always walked to school, and the church was on the opposite side of the grounds from where I walked in, so I didn't see it before the school. But I had been fixated all morning in class, my young and innocent imagination running wild with demonic fantasy. I was scared as all hell, but full of excitement. This proved the devil was real, right? There are actually Satanists waging war on God in our church. This was the biggest thing ever. I needed to see and witness the damage of this unholy assault. Man, that morning at recess, there it all was. Pentagrams, upside-down crosses, 666, Satan, God is pot, written on the outer wall of the school facing the playground. Unholy shit, it was real. And the wicked excitement and fear of it swept me away. I was so fucking evil and so fucking cool. It was so fucking evil and so fucking cool. After this, I took to trying to find anything I could about the devil, not out of worshiping, but out of curiosity. The devil was just rad looking. His story was rad. I started watching horror movies that touched on the subject. I'd check out books that included imagery or stories about Satan. Even though at that point I was still a believer in Christ, I was hooked on the horns of Lucifer. As I got older, I started applying more critical thinking toward what I was being taught and told. I found that the institution of the church was nothing but merely a form of control. It was hypocritical and didn't reward individualism. It was conform or be cast away, hardly what Jesus preached. By my teenage years, I was in an alternative hippie school. I started getting into shrooms and LSD and found my trips were profoundly influenced by my Catholic upbringing, just like in altered states. The light of heaven shining and opening up before me, a choir of angels and bells calling to me while tripping balls at Car Creek Park. But then the light turned and it burned red and black. The choir and bells slowed and churned out of tune. All became twisted and distorted, and I became a beast, cloven-hooved and horned as I looked in the mirror. Satan has had a major influence on me over the course of my life. As a young child, it was a literal belief. It was fear. As I got older, it became fascination of what good and evil really are. The thing I found is that these are constructs that only humans would come up with, and if you look at God in the Old Testament and all of his wrath, is Satan really all that bad? I don't believe in God or Satan as beings, but they make great characters. These two opposing forces are just our dual natures, and sometimes we're at odds with our own selves, and we are certainly always at odds with each other. I think more people are leaning this way nowadays, but there certainly are a lot of people that believe these characters are in fact real, and our souls are at stake over this eternal battle of good versus evil. Like I said, only humans could make this stuff up. Anyway, when it comes to the story, I find Satan is just way more interesting and way more cool. He's got style, and he makes motherfuckers play guitar way more wickedly. He's just way more metal. I always say, hell's where the party's at. You can't win if you don't sin. That's my rant. A lot to type out on the phone on a good buzz. Live long and rule. Hail Satan. Well, you know what I got to say, Sheriff Carl? That's the kind of letter I like. And I appreciate your candor and honesty. But yeah, I mean, I think what you described is what a lot of people go through. You talk about a spiritual journey. I mean, I tend to believe ultimately that humanity, if we have a purpose, if there is a supreme being, and I'm not ruling that out, because, maybe we are. Maybe the essential creation story was true. Maybe we were created by a supreme being, even in their own image. That could have actually happened. I think our understanding of such a being is a little rudimentary. I think the actual reality of such would be a little bit more complex. But you never know. You don't know. You just do not know. But what can you do? This is a really good letter, I thought. It's from Stubble McShave. Stubble McShave says, "Greetings to the pontiff of pictorial personification and to the rest of the PGS. During the Midnight Metal episode 5, I brought up Game of Thrones and asked you guys about how enthusiastic you were for the new shows that are supposedly coming. You answered that you were more let down by the show's ending than anything else you could think of. And that made me think, no matter how let down the audience are by the ending, it's probably nothing to how the actors feel that they were let down. And I think there's been sufficient time now to see what impact it had on their career, at least in the short run. The actors in Game of Thrones had the world at their feet after seasons 5 and 6. They were getting offers from all over the place, and the two Stark sisters, Sophie Turner and Maisie Williams, were filming potential blockbuster superhero movies. Both of those movies weren't all that great, and they tanked at the box office. Still, the actor from Game of Thrones were throwing projects their way. Everyone wanted to work with them to capitalize on their marketability and talent. Then what happened? The infamous last season. The quality had gone downhill in the previous 2 seasons, but it was still one of the best shows on TV. But the offers dried up for many of the actors, especially for those that hadn't been killed off in previous seasons. The actors that had been killed off, such as Charles Dance, Michael McLatton, Diana Rigg, Natalie Dormer, and Richard Madden, probably felt a bit of the backlash, but it was nothing to the extent that was the case for the actors in the last season. It was probably worse for the actors that didn't have a substantial resume from previous shows or movies. For actors with a substantial backlog of movies and shows, the effect probably wasn't as bad. I'm thinking of actors such as Peter Dinklage, Lena Headey, and Liam Cunningham. But still, you can't tell me that it's had a stifling effect on their careers as well. For the younger class, such as Emilia Clarke, Kit Harington, Gwendolyn Christie, and the Stark daughters, the effects have been much bigger. They aren't getting the big projects, and the projects they do get, probably they have to fight for in a way they hadn't counted on a few years earlier. No productions want to be associated with that last season. For those who didn't have a previous career, Game of Thrones only had that production to fall back on, and all the great episodes in previous years didn't matter. If you have a great meal and the chocolate dessert actually turns out to be a mound of shit instead of chocolate, guess what you'll remember from that meal? Anyway, that's what I wanted to say. We, the audience, may be disappointed or even pissed off when a great show turns really bad, but that's nothing to how the actors who are the face of the show must feel when they see their promising future get torpedoed by the creators of a show that made them big in the first place. Thanks, Stubble McShave. Well, Stubble, I think, unfortunately, you make a great point. That's just what happens in Hollywood. I mean, there's nothing you can really do about that. Everybody loves a winner. And unfortunately, it's all about perception. And if you're in a show everybody likes and everybody talks about, that's very buzzy, it has a lot of buzz, obviously, you get the rewards. And if you're in something that's considered not so good, it doesn't matter if you were good in it. And it's kind of too bad. I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's kind of true, which is unfortunate. I mean, I hate that things are that way, but a lot of the time that's just the way things are, which is really totally a bummer. But I think your point's well taken. I don't think you're wrong at all. And I feel bad for those folks. So, yeah, I mean, indeed. Omar94 writes in and says, "Hi, Rob, moderators of the Post-Geek Singularity. Despite episode 666 getting delayed a few times now, it's finally come. I recently thought about the story of how the ArcLight cinemas and Pacific theaters are permanently closing down because of COVID-19. I once visited LA almost 10 years ago, but I never went to any of the ArcLight and Pacific theaters, and that was my regret, since I won't have that experience the way you and others do. Some people in Hollywood are also mourning the loss of the ArcLight the way you are, Rob, like Rian Johnson, James Gunn, Edgar Wright, and others. Episode 666 is about fiction's greatest antagonist, but reality's antagonist right now is the pandemic. The pandemic has really taken a toll on life, not just in the U.S., but the rest of the world, as people are losing jobs and businesses and are going bankrupt and out of business. However, I would like to think this show, as well as some other entertainment-related YouTube channels, are some of the things making the Post-Geek singularity feel better, since we're all still together. I also went through the first day of Ramadan on April 13th, and this show, as well as other entertainment-related YouTube channels like the John Campea Show, for example, is helping, but I still have a long way to go. Thanks, and live long and prosper. Well, Omar, that's very nice of you to say. Yeah, I mean, for those of you who don't know, I mean, I'm sure you've read about how my uncle used to be president of Pacific Theaters, and he's quite old now. I haven't called him and talked to him about this. I don't know if I should. But Pacific Theaters was a big upscale theater chain here in the LA area. They had about 300 screens, but they also anchored a lot of major shopping establishments. The Pacific Theaters at the Grove, when the Grove was opened, I think back in the late 90s. That was my theater of choice. I was always at Pacific Theaters. Always at Pacific Theaters. I was always meeting friends there at the Grove, going to the farmer's market, having dinner there. I mean, I was there all the time. And Pacific Theaters are there. They anchor that place. Same with the Americana. But over the last, 20 years as well, the ArcLight, since the ArcLight opened, I think 2002 or something, the Cinerama Dome it used to be just a freestanding structure. That was always there. But then they built the ArcLight Theater Complex, and I think there was is there 16 other theaters there? 16, 14? Huge complex. Huge. You walk in this gigantic, like John Campea says, like an airport with like arrivals and a restaurant. I loved it. And I probably saw more movies at the ArcLight than anywhere else. Again, I was always there. Sometimes I would go there almost every night. There was a great restaurant there, a great bar. There was other great restaurants and bars around it, big parking structure. I mean, it was a fantastic place, and that's what the Cinerama Dome was, which was my favorite. The Chinese, the Cinerama, and then the theaters in Westwood, the Fox and the National, which they tore down, were my favorite theaters in L.A. Unless you're going to IMAX headquarters, which is great, or the best theater in L.A. is the Samuel Goldwyn, the Motion Picture Academy Theater, or if you go on the lot, the studios have incredible theaters. The Steve Ross Theater on the Warner lot's incredible. But now, honestly, there was an ArcLight 5 minutes from here where we live, and we went there a lot, and it was an upscale place that served the entertainment industry. And it's not that I was a snob, it was just that all of the normal problems with people who text in movie theaters or talk did not go to the ArcLight. They made it not only did you pay a little bit more for your tickets, but nobody would have put up with that. People just didn't put up with it. And the place was a joy, and also the movie-going public that would frequent the ArcLight cinemas, where I would run into everybody all the time. There was seldom a time when I went to the ArcLight that I didn't see somebody I knew. And you'd strike up conversations and catch up with people, because it was an industry hub. And then you had Amoeba Records right there, so people would go to Amoeba, they'd go to like the pizza place, the upscale pizza place, and they'd go. It's just it's such a loss for Los Angeles, and I don't understand, what happened, but it's a bummer. A bummer. So this one comes from Stephen M. Thompson. Robert, how has the Robcaster been gathered together into one place, or who doth upbear him upon the shoulders of genius? I am celebrating the arrival of episode 666 by baking a cake. Devil's food, what else? As I type this, I heard you accepting a super chat from Lucifer. So I would refer you to Black Sabbath's NIB and Suicidal Tendencies, You'll Be Sorry. Anyways, as I do so, I'll be playing a Slayer playlist to damn the cake properly. Some fun facts involving 666. 666 Celsius is 939 kelvins. It is also 1,230.8 degrees Fahrenheit. 666 Fahrenheit is 352.222 Celsius. 666 kelvins is 393 Celsius, and that is 739.4 Fahrenheit. 666 squared is 443,556, and the square root of 666 is 25.807. Lastly, but definitely not least, just 8 miles to the west of Schulenburg, Texas, on I-10 lies mile 666. But for the past 20 years or so, Texas DOT has replaced the mile marker with a yellow and black striped marker. So is Interstate 10 cursed? Is it the most metal highway in the country? By the way, that mile marker is 1,071.82 kilometers from the border with New Mexico at Anthony, Texas, and 413.83 miles equal 666 kilometers. Apologies for all the numbers, Robert, but I am less possessed by Satan as I am by mirth. Or am I? It says insert maniacal laughter here. Anyways, keep up the good work as always, and here's to 666 more, which equals 1,332 total episodes, of course. Raise a blood red glass of wine to the screen, clinks it against the screen. Well, I only have water, but Stephen Thompson, Stephen with the V for those in the chat. Well, thank you, Stephen with the V. I appreciate that very much. What a great letter. How informative. Let's see. Oh my gosh, Willow Yang. You know what? I'm gonna save this Willow Yang letter because it's a letter that I'm not gonna read for the 666 show. Let's see. Well, you know what? I'm going to read this anyway. Adam Quain has written in. Adam Quain says, "Hi, Rob. I am a producer for Specificity Archives and a representative of Liam Quain, a filmmaker and now author, as he is at the final stretch of having his book, Road to Juno, published by Beaten Track, a publishing house in the UK. I'm a fan of your YouTube channel and have been watching your stuff for a while. I like your long-form structure and the fact that you try and address the subject of genre cinema while trying to help sever the political disconnections many have chosen to make for themselves during these trying years. My name is Adam Quain, and I'm Liam's brother. Though this is our first foray into the book world, we actually have a background in cinema. We're both highly skilled with degrees from 2 separate UK universities at our disposal and have been working through the years trying to build careers as writers and filmmakers. I've had my work featured on a few websites such as the London Economic and have appeared as a guest on various UK radio stations, including the time I was featured as an expert on Coventry FM's film show where I spoke about the impact of Avengers Endgame on the industry and how the project came to be. Firstly, I would like to link from Entertainment Weekly from Darren Franich, Reign of the Evil Supermen from EW.com. Though I've been busy, and I'm sure you've already addressed this on your show, I'm writing to use this article as an excuse to insert my point of view as a guest on your podcast. All right. Regarding this article, as it just so happens that Liam's book is about this very subject, and though it is a work of fiction, a great deal of care was taken to refine the story, not only for it to be a rousing story of gods and monsters, but as a commentary on genre fiction of a similar ilk and the supposed breakdown of societal norms after major political events, such as the rise of Donald Trump in 2016 and Brexit. I lean to the left and have a passion for scraping away the moss we bury ourselves with, particularly in genre fandom. This is quite a shot I'm taking, I know, but the release of the book is imminent, and I'm taking whatever shots I can in hoping to further promote the book as well as Liam as an author. I hope you understand. It is beneficial that I see myself as an academic source, and I want to create a space where genre fans can study the content they love and hopefully go on to studying why and how genre stories claim to be. Below, I will link various sites related to the book as well as an example of my writing as a critic. I know this is incredibly forward, but I hope you understand the risk I'm taking in emailing you today. Hope to hear from you soon. Best wishes, fellow genre connoisseur Adam Quain, producer of The Road to Juno Specificity Archives. Well, I'll tell you, Adam, listen, here's what I would offer to you. First of all, thank you for writing me. Secondly, thank you for the work that you have that you're putting out. As you know, I am 20. What am I? I am 66. Well, this is 666, right? So I'm 34 episodes away from episode 700, and I am doing pre-recorded interviews with people for that episode, the same way I did for the 400th episode of Robservations. So I would invite you, sir, and your brother, allow me to interview you. We'll do a long-form interview. I can put it up separately, just our interview, and then I'll do a cut-down version for the 700th show. So, let's do it. I'm down. I will contact you about this, and we'll do an interview. It sounds good to me. And if there's any way, can I buy the book now? I'm looking at, I'll get the book, and I'll read it. But I'm in. Count me in. Let's do it. Yes. So there you go. Here's a letter from Martin Lawrence. Martin says, "Greetings and salutations, Rob. I wanted to write in and get your views on fan expectation and to a lesser extent entitlement. When a film comes out based on a novel, comic, or TV series, there will be existing fans eager to see characters they've invested in, realized on the big screen, and scenes we would love to see play out in scenarios we picture for ourselves. And I guess it sometimes plays out to the detriment of the film-going experience when it isn't realized exactly as we've envisioned it, and that certainly isn't the filmmaker's fault. And I guess it isn't ours either. We can't help but get excited picturing, let's say, James Bond going on a globe-trotting adventure and battling henchmen. I'm not sure we should bemoan the film production if it doesn't play out how we expect it to. I would love to get your thoughts on this. Yours sincerely, Martin Lawrence." Martin, it's a good question. You know, I'm a big fan of the critical drinker. I think he is a very clear-thinking gentleman. He's an author himself, so he is a storyteller himself, and I really appreciate he having streamed with him. We talked about Star Trek: The Motion Picture. I really appreciate his cogent point of view. But here's something that I didn't used to feel this way. I used to just accept what was given to me, like everybody else. You know, I've been a lifelong fan of all of this material, but it is baffling to me when I see companies like when they acquire things. I guess what I'm trying to say is, what am I trying to say, Rob? What are you trying to say? I don't understand why our great money-making franchises are not, I guess, curated would be the word. Why they're not taken better care of. And it seems interesting to me, like, I mean, I know it's not how Hollywood works, but let's say you were going to make a new Star Wars trilogy that was following up Return of the Jedi. Why doesn't Hollywood take... I mean, they take pitches for everything else. But for their great franchises, like, get pitches and bids on these things. like if I was going to do... If I spent $4 billion on Star Wars, and I knew we were going to start out making movies, I think I might spend the first 6 months asking all of Hollywood, like obviously the highest ranking people, Mr. James Cameron, Steven Spielberg, or your writing teams of people, come in and pitch us. And I know they do this. You pitch other movies, but I don't know why they don't spend more time doing that? Or why don't you have, like, Lucasfilm has a story department? Well, are they scouring all the stories that already exist? The comic books, the novels, the video games, and look around and go, here are some great things that we love. For instance, Grand Admiral Thrawn. Grand Admiral Thrawn began in Timothy Zahn's books in the early 90s, was utilized in animated shows. Now apparently we're going to get him in the Ahsoka series. So Grand Admiral Thrawn is a character that, while was not canonical on the big screen, was a character that people liked. You've got the Timothy Zahn books with his backstory, and so why wouldn't you go, okay, the Thrawn character is part of this whole mythos, let's bring that in somehow. Grand Admiral Thrawn going to be part of this team. So we would do that and then go from there and maybe build your story or figure this kind of stuff out. Why, for instance, Shane Black, Predators, or The Predator, that didn't work out so well. I don't quite know why, but again, there's so many of these great stories. Alien versus Predator. We had the great Dark Horse comic. I read that comic. I'm like, this should be a movie. I couldn't have been the only one. Even though I was a development executive, somebody must have said, hey, there's a lot of great Dark Horse Alien comics. I'm like, you've got 5 Alien movies here with each one of these comics right here. Go do those. I really don't understand. Like, I understand you're going to bring in an interesting filmmaker, and when I was watching Critical Drinkers, he did a video today about these franchises, and like I look at Star Trek and I think to myself, I'm like, what? As I watch Discovery, I'm like, what story are you telling here? Like, literally, what is this story supposed to be about? Am I supposed to believe this? Where can you look at a story about the burn and the cause of the burn? Where is there anything in science fiction that's analogous to this, or in real life, like some kid bonded in the womb with dilithium, so he cries out his mental anguish, goes across the cosmos, and destroys all of this mineral? If you think about that, there's nothing in that, and you've made it the entire basis of an entire series, a season of Star Trek. Why? Like, who thought that was a good idea? Even when I'm reading Akiva Goldsman's article, which I might have to go through, the Strange New Worlds article tomorrow, because I'm reading this going, what is this guy saying? You've already got all of this Star Trek that you can look at and go, well, let's do more of that. Like, but I know the thing is they don't want to do more of that because they want to turn Star Trek into something else. So it's a very good question. And yeah. And speaking of good questions, anyway, this comes from Hayden Burke. Hayden Burke says, "Hey Rob, with all this multiverse talk in regards to comic book films, I have to say I'm really excited. Now, I know Toby and Andrew are not confirmed for No Way Home, but let's just assume they are for a minute. Just for background, I grew up with the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. In 2010, the 4th film was canceled, and I was devastated. Sony earned my investment in this ongoing story, and without any warning, it was over. I know how you feel about remakes and reboots, and honestly, I agree with you. However, when an ongoing series is stopped, when another entry was promised, it almost feels like the previous series is delegitimized and the new version takes its place as the genuine article. This led to my genuine resentment toward The Amazing Spider-Man. I never enjoyed it as much because in my eyes the character was different to the one that I grew up with. It's like Coke changing its flavor and never allowing the original to come back. Same went for my feelings toward Tom Holland's Spider-Man. However, the idea of the multiverse changed all that. Suddenly, these versions of the characters are no longer replacements and upgrades of the previous iterations, merely just Spider-Men that coexist within the same multiverse. Now, I don't care that MJ is a brunette named Michelle and not Mary Jane Watson, because somewhere out there's already a Peter Parker with a red-haired Mary Jane Watson. Excuse me. I don't need another. This thrills me. Not only do all versions of the characters exist within the same reality, but they each have their own unique quirks. When I marathon the MCU now, I can literally marathon previous multiverse entries, and they all count. Not only that, each version of the character isn't exactly the same, they're unique. I can only speak for myself here, but I imagine Sony would be loving the concept of the previous films finding newfound interest from a new generation of fans, as those films now add to the overall story of the MCU. The 2002 classic is no longer just an old Spider-Man movie. It's chapter 1 of an 8-part epic leading to No Way Home. My God, am I excited for this movie. But hey, it might just be mindless rumors. Thanks, Hayden Burke. Great letter, Hayden. I'm right there with you. I mean, reading comics, loving the JSA and the JSA, or JSA and JSA, the JLA and the JSA. I'm all down for the multiverse. I don't understand. For me, what it comes down to is the movie, does it present us with a great iteration of the character in a great story? That's all. And also, I feel that there is a fundamental flaw in the thinking of things. And again, I go back to Star Trek. That one of the things that I always loved about Star Trek, and look, this is how Star Trek positioned itself as positioned by its creator, Gene Roddenberry. When you went from, in the original series, when they repurposed the original rejected pilot with Captain Pike, the Cage, when they repurposed the Cage as the Menagerie Part 1 and 2 within the continuity of Star Trek, brilliant conceit. What it immediately did was it created a Star Trek continuity. It immediately gave it a history, a real history that we saw. We saw what 10 years previous, different uniforms, the Enterprise had been modified slightly. Things were different. Maybe it had gone through a refit since then, obviously. And then in Star Trek the Motion Picture, rather than just be a rehash, more time had passed. So between the original series, between the Cage, the Menagerie, the original series, and Star Trek the Motion Picture, they provided us a historical continuity within the framework of Star Trek itself. This was amazing. And the continuity of actor in Leonard Nimoy, Spock in the Cage, Spock in the original series in the Menagerie, and Spock in Star Trek the Motion Picture. Well, as far as pop culture goes, this did something that was unique to Star Trek, in that it gave Star Trek a demonstrable in-universe history. And I think part of being a Star Trek fan was having that history to study and be a part of. Like, we could now pick out, oh yeah, this is how these characters were different. And even in the story, that was so brilliant, the conceit of the Menagerie, which is all about how Spock, Vulcans, of course, have emotion. Spock, everything he did was emotional in a way, but also done in a very logical manner. But what he was doing was showing empathy to his friend. Vulcans, it's not like don't have emotion. They have emotion. They just control their emotions. But they feel anything like anybody else does. They just control those feelings. And I hate when people say Vulcans don't have emotions. And I think a lot of the people that work on Star Trek don't get that. Or the idea that Spock didn't go through tremendous amounts of discipline. Just because Spock smiled in the Menagerie doesn't mean, or smiled in the Cage, doesn't mean that was a production error. A smart person would be like, yeah, we're going to overlook that. We're going to overlook that. Of course, I know you've been obsessed, Michael Chabon, since you were a kid, but that was because they hadn't figured it all out yet. So you're supposed to be smart enough as a Pulitzer Prize winning author to know that that's not something to base an entire character trait around. But one of the things about modern Star Trek was, in 2009, they abandoned that continuity. And then, of course, with Discovery, they wanted to have their cake and eat it too. They abandoned their continuity entirely, but then tell us that, nope, this is in continuity, without doing not one thing, not one, other than giving us character name checks or bringing something in. There's nothing that gives Star Trek Discovery or Picard really continuity with their previous iterations, which is weird. I mean, I don't understand why they don't do that. Well, I think it's really cool that, and I understand, like when they made The Amazing Spider-Man, I liked Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker. I did. I liked him as Peter Parker. And when they didn't make Spider-Man 4, I can tell you why. Because it would be too damn expensive. The problem that people have is the reason that they make like trilogies and then they're done is because by the time you get to a fourth film, the actors in a successful franchise are commanding so much money. The directors are commanding so much money that it makes it financially completely not feasible to continue franchises because everybody wants to get a taste. A franchise that's that successful that they're going to make a fourth film, economically, they price themselves, the people involved price themselves out of being able to make the films. And that's the biggest problem. So they go back and start over. New director, new actor, happy to get the role, but then the studio's like, you have to prove yourself, bruh. You know, if you don't do the work, we're not going to put you in that role. So I think you're absolutely right. Having the multiverse and having all these things exist in multiple continuities, I think it works out well. What I don't like is why when you see a movie like Alien and Aliens, they go back and then they decide to put a movie where predators are hunting aliens in a temple in the Arctic. Why do that in the Antarctic? Why do that? I mean, it's like, what? I know it's cheaper. We said it on Earth. It's cheaper. I get that, but, well, that's dumb. But anyway, just me. Let's see what you guys are saying. I don't even know. I have no idea. But let's go back here. I don't even know. You know, I wasn't on. Let me go back. Wow, there's a ways to go back. Satan's Pussy sends in a tip and says, "You want blood? I've got it. The blood will flow like the rivers of ancient Babylon." Well, you know, and I'll be right there with my mouth open, drinking. Willow says, "If you had the chance to interview Satan, what are some of the most pressing questions that you would like to ask him or her?" Ooh, that's a good question. I guess I would ask Satan, since you've been collecting the souls of humanity for however long, what are some of the things that you've learned about human beings that are immutable? And what are some of the things that you've learned that we can change? And perhaps can you point us in the direction, because after all, he is a fallen angel. What can you tell us about what we can do to improve our species, to make sure that less of us wind up in your care? That's what I would say. Jason S. also said yesterday, haha, to that, to Satan's Pussy. Okay, so that was from yesterday. So that was the ones I missed. Julius Goodwin, our sommelier, the official sommelier of this channel, sent in a very nice tip today. Julius, thank you so much. I would assume you're sending that in to either because of my 6th anniversary on YouTube, but thank you very much. And thank you for your continued generosity. It's very nice. Yeah. And thank you all. And I very much appreciate the ongoing support and the fact that you're the official sommelier of the Burnettwork. Mr. Intellectual sends in a tip and says, 1 of 3. Rob, you say, someone please explain ArcLight. How can this be? Well, it's pretty simple, Rob. I'm sure you're a fan of The Godfather, where he says, I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse. So you are aware, right now, businesses in commercial real estate are being highly leveraged by investment funds. Most businesses can't afford to say no. I'm sorry, Rob, but you have to realize they don't care about the actual companies. The leverage they put on them is dominance to compel certain terms. Where's the third one? And this is how they strong arm their partners across multiple areas. But why, right, Rob? It's because they use exorbitant rental payments to drive the businesses out and take control of the loans. I love the ArcLight, and it's a damn shame, Rob. It makes me sick. Well, Mr. Intellectual, I think that's as good an explanation as any, and you're probably right. At some point, as we become more evolved as people, and I know that we have a long way to go, but there ultimately is going to have to be a balance between the idea of what is it for the how is the greater good? I shouldn't say greater good. Where's quality of life for in terms of Los Angeles or any city? Like, for instance, we used to have a place called the Cat and Fiddle. It was a British pub. It was on Sunset Boulevard. It had a beautiful open courtyard, and it had a bar interior. You could get food. It was one of my favorite places to go in Hollywood. It was unlike the rotating on Cahuenga or on Cahuenga, which just had every other week. It seemed like clubs were opening and closing, and places were opening and closing. They tried to make them very trendy, but the Cat and the Fiddle was a place that everybody went to. It was always packed, but it wasn't a hipster scenester place. Even though if you wanted to go meet Morrissey from the Smiths, he was always holding court there, and you could just go up to him and say, "Hey man, what's up? Please tell me, let me get what I want." Or Sheila take a bow. You could do whatever and go see Morrissey. He was there, but it was an awesome place to go. And then one day, it was shuttered, and there was nothing put in its place. As far as I know, I don't know if there ever was. It was just gone. And was that better or worse? And I think ultimately we have to ask ourselves, what makes this life worth living? And I think that there are certain things that cities, New York obviously has changed because it's become a city. The lifeblood of New York was one of the things that struck me the first time I went to New York in 1990, 31 years ago, was how every block was this vibrant universe. Like, you could go around a New York City block, and there were steps that went down somewhere, steps that went up somewhere, but you could literally spend a week exploring every little thing that was on one block in New York City. And a lot of that stuff is given way because of the wealth that's obviously accumulated. Not that there wasn't always wealth in New York, but it seemed like massive wealth coexisted with maybe not massive wealth, but you could have very highbrow things and very lowbrow things all mixed up together, and that's what gave New York its appeal. Maybe I'm romanticizing it, but that's what struck me when I first went there. I was fascinated. My sister and I, my grandmother is from New York, sent us there because we'd never been there, and my sister and I together, she gave us a bunch of money, and she said, go have a good time, and put us up, and it was an incredible time, but I love New York, and New York has definitely changed. There's a lot of places that are still there, but what made New York was all of that, all of the atmosphere, the milieu. And I just wonder, I get that. I get everybody has to make money. But at the end of the day, you also, if you're going to have a city, the city itself needs to be a vibrant place that's going to make money, obviously. And when you have real estate concerns, companies that don't even exist in the city owning these things and making these kinds of decisions, it can be certainly problematic. Losing Pacific Theaters, I think, is problematic for a number of reasons. There's a company there that was anchored in around a bunch of other businesses. Certainly the ArcLight, the Hollywood ArcLight's one of the busiest movie theaters in the United States. And there was a lot of other things that had restaurants and a big gymnasium and there's all kinds of things that had the ArcLight bringing people in. And there are larger ramifications, but you're probably correct. Michael Brown sends in a tip and says, I love the show, Rob. Great host and great chat. Well, thank you if I do say so myself. Congrats on the views and a toast to even more success in your future. What a lovely day for an exorcism. My favorite line from The Exorcist. It's so great. And by the way, Michael, thank you for acquiring things like this Xbox and the PlayStation 5s you've been acquiring for me. Also, you also acquired for me the Blu-ray remote, the media remote for the PlayStation 5, which is very hard to get. Thank you so much. I very much appreciate it. Thanks to you, your wife, and your lovely family. Louis Terrazas says, hey, Rob, I used to like older horror movies, but haven't seen anything good for a while. How do you think films can get back to something like that? Well, I gotta say, bro, there's some pretty good horror movies. That is the one place where I have to say I think there's a lot of good stuff out there. My boys, the Pierce brothers, and I can say they're my boys because I actually had drinks with them last weekend. I got way drunker than I thought. We had a 5-hour conversation. I kept drinking the double Jamesons, but we had a great time. Their film, The Wretched, low budget horror. Thought it was delightful. There's so much good horror around. Movies like The Invitation or The Ritual or The Witch. I think that horror actually as a genre is really healthy right now. And you do have to look. And while you might not be getting Nightmare on Elm Street or necessarily American Werewolf in London, I think there's a lot of really good, really upscale horror today. And maybe I should do a show about that. Maybe for I can get more people to come on to talk about that. So yeah. But it depends, because you didn't offer examples. Like, you liked older horror movies. I don't know which kind of horror movies that you liked. I mean, I've always been more of an upscale horror guy. Not so much. I mean, I've seen all the slasher movies and I like them, but they're not that interesting to me. But there's a lot of really interesting horror out these days. Stuff like Raw, which I just picked up the Blu-ray. I thought Raw was a pretty great film. Bliss, another sort of interesting movie. Elizabeth and I watched Swallow, which not necessarily traditional horror, but certainly disturbing, horrific elements of that. So Kevin says, we have got to add the Robot Hell song from Futurama. Yes, it just depends whether Spotify has that on their playlist. Faust. Hello, Faust. I'm going to make a Faustian bargain with you. Old Scratch offered me a timeshare. Looks promising. What do you think? Well, Faust, I got to say, I wouldn't do it if I were you, especially with the name Faust. Vanessa G. Ramos says, Devil Daddy Rob. Scary movies are too much for me, but I do think that WandaVision would have been even better with Mephisto. I kind of think you might have been right. But do you really think they're going to do that? I mean, it's Disney. I don't know. But I like The Exorcist, and I know the true story of it. You know what, Vanessa? I've thought a lot about this, because obviously I answered how many questions for John Campea on his spoiler, and he'd give me questions that he'd have to, so many questions. I think the real problem with WandaVision is I think they pushed it pretty far with Agnes, and back here are the Salem witch trials, and they actually gave us witches in the 16th century, or the 15th century, 16th, right? So I thought that was it. Introducing Mephisto would have added a whole new layer that would have been a little crazy. So I don't know if they could have done that and made people believe it was a thin line already with all that wackiness. I mean, would I have liked it like you? Yeah, because I'm a Marvel Comics fan. But I don't know how it would have played. It might have pushed the boundaries of reality a little too far. So you never know. But yeah, I don't know. Batsy41 sends in a super chat and says, Hey Rob, felicitacion. 6 years. Wow. Cheers to a bright future. Well, cheers to you. Thank you for the super chat. Thanks for supporting the channel. Appreciate that. A Black Truck says, Hello, Rob. I'm older like you. Oh, thanks, buddy. Come on, really rub it in. Now, I'm older like you, and my friends and I used to play the Ouija. Man, this one time my girlfriend's mom took it and burned it up and threw it in the trash. The rest of the time in that house, there was always weird shit. Made me a believer. Yeah, man, a Ouija board. Or Ouija board. I'm not gonna do that. You don't burn up that. It'll never go away. It'll never go away. So I'm scared for you. Louis Terrazas is also here. Rob, again, are you a big fan of serial killer documentaries and films? I think in reading more about them, so many had interest in the devil and such. Humans just seem to call that for various reasons, but the indoctrination is just from religion. There is no hell. First of all, I love books about serial killers, serial pathology, anything to do with human beings because I'm fascinated by the pathology itself. Like, why do human beings, is psychopathy really the loss of empathy, and why does this happen, and how does it get nurtured? And give me a movie, what is it, My Best Friend Dahmer or something? I watched that. I was like, wow, this is pretty good. I'll watch anything to do. I've read so many books about serial killers. I love that stuff, but it's all about behavior because I'm interested in people. What is the pathology? Where do people wind up doing that? But yeah, a lot of that comes from the way people are treated, and it's not just it's not just psychopathy. it has to do with nurture and all that, and I bring it on. Yeah, I'm a big serial killer fan. I shouldn't say I'm not a fan of serial killers. I'm a fan of serial killer movies and books and TV shows and all that. If the following was real, would I have been a follower? Probably not. I don't want to be a killer. I don't like people losing their lives, but I would have studied them. Stubble McShave, by the way, The Serpent, why I don't like the back and forth. Speaking of things I've watched on TV that were enjoyable, The Serpent, which I talked about how their back and forth thing drove me crazy. 000 on Amazon, which is an Italian crime thriller. It's all about how one shipment of cocaine would go from Mexico to Italy. And my God, is it great. It's so good. Love it. If you like that crime thriller stuff, which I do, check it out. Stub McShave says 1 of 2. Names for the Dark One in World of Time from different cultures. Shaitan, Father of Lies, Sight Blinder, Lord of the Grave, Lord of the Twilight, Shepherd of the Night, Heartsbane, Soulsbane, Heart Fang, used by wolves, Old Grim, Grass Burner, Leaf Blighter, Father of Storms, Kason Hob, Light Eater, Soul Binder, Great Lord of the Dark, Lord of the Grave, Lord of the Evening. I got most of them, but I think I missed a few names for Shaitan, a.k.a. the Dark One. Those are great names. I think my favorite might be Old Grim. Instead of Old Scratch, Old Grim. I like that. The PGS Dork Lord says, great take on Hell in Night Gallery with Gomez, John Aston. Oh, yeah. Oh, is that episode up? I will put this. If you guys haven't seen Rod Serling's Night Gallery, here is, in fact, a great episode with which you should check that out. Good get, PGS Dark Lord. Lucifer. Oh my God, Lucifer, ZL1. Why, Lucifer, I have to say, I give it up. Lucifer has been very, very generous with this channel. So, Old Scratch, I don't know, however, if these generous super chats you are sending me are indeed, I'm saying it right now, this is a non-binding contract. I could see you tricking me by, if I do something, these super chats, when Google AdSense takes their cut, and they do, and then I actually take possession of this and spend this money somehow or invest it, does that mean we have a binding agreement? I want to say, for the record, I do not think so. I've not signed anything in blood, but I very much appreciate you supporting the channel like this. I don't know what I've deserved. Maybe you know something about my eternal soul that I don't. Elizabeth, she actually said to me when I was walking out, she said, listen, don't sign any contracts with anybody like the devil or anything like that. Don't do that. And I promised her I wouldn't. So if you're tricking me into, by these generous super chats and supporting the channel the way you do, if you're tricking me into signing away my eternal soul, shame on you. Shame on you for doing that. That's not fair. You've got to give me a chance to negotiate. We have to go to the crossroads. But I want to thank you for supporting the channel. It's very generous. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. And it's nice to know that, the devil himself does watch this show. I'd like to know that Lucifer is, in fact, an imagination connoisseur. Because just because you're a fallen angel doesn't mean you can't still bitch about Last Jedi or Discovery. So I want to give that to you, and I want to thank you for being here. And remember what's in Anton LaVey's Satanic Bible. Love represents, or Satan, Lucifer, Satan represents love for those who deserve it, not love wasted on ingrates. So thank you for that. Drock Media sends in a super chat and says, great day. Met you first on Heroes this day. It's my birthday and a metal stream. Yes. Rock on, Rob, and everyone. I've been waiting for this one. Drock Media, we will stay metal, and happy birthday. Yeah. Jared M. Snyder says, greetings, RMB. One of the great LP covers is Satan is Real, the Leuven Brothers. They set tires on fire to get the effects. Ooh, Satan is Real. Geraldine Jones, The Devil Made Me Do It. I know what you did there. By the way, The Devil and Miss Jones was the first pornographic movie I ever saw. It was shocking to me when I saw it. I was watching with two of my guy friends, and no, it wasn't some weird circle jerk scenario. I think we were all horrified. We had no idea what we were into. I did not know that a pornographic movie would start with a naked woman in a bath and then slitting her wrists and bleeding to death. This was not the way. So, Geraldine, I'm sorry. What happened to you? I'm sorry. But the devil didn't make you do it. You took your own life, and that's why you met the devil. Just saying. Ash Chauhan says, Robert Meyer Burnett. 3 names, a total of 18 letters. 3 into 18 is 6. 3 6s in 18, 18 letters. The amount of letters in Robert Meyer Burnett equals Robert Meyer Burnett is the devil. Well, you know what? I used to think I might have been. If I could have been the devil or an alien prince that was secreted here on Earth, and then one day a ship would come down and I would be restored to my I'd be given my family's birthright, and I would take over running a planet, I would do a better job than Paul Atreides did on Arrakis and the rest of the galaxy. So, just so you know. Stubble McShave sends in a tip and says, one of my favorite examples of hell-adjacent art is the uncensored cover of the RPG Cult Divinity Lost Core Rules cover. Well, let's see that. I'll call that up and put that in the live chat so you can have it. Here you go. There you go. I will have to look at that. I'm going to take a look at that because I want to see what that is too. Oh, that's that's an amazing piece of art. Wow, I love it. Wow, that is really beautiful. I like that you say that it's hell adjacent. Brian Johnson sends in a super chat. Would that be the Brian Johnson who is the director of special effects for The Empire Strikes Back, the visual effects supervisor, and the man who but designed the Eagle Transporter from Space 1999? Bobby Hatch to Hell Koal says, the satanic depictions in the silent classic Haxan Witchcraft Through the Ages are pretty haunting. They are. That's a good movie, too. I imagined the man at the grindstone in Eraserhead was Satan lording over the title character's personal hell. Ooh, I like that. I think that's a good idea. I like that a lot. Sheriff Carl from Hell says, I enjoy most of the movies mentioned today, but I honestly feel that we have never had a truly awesome movie, Satan. I guess that's what years of Catholicism and psychedelics are for. I used to turn into a demon when I stared into a mirror. Hi, I recommend it. You know, Sheriff, I have to say, I think that that Satan is too human. The depictions of Satan have been too human. That's kind of, and you know, even in like Prince of Darkness, as much as I like Prince of Darkness, you don't really see Satan really until kind of the end, if you really see him. But yeah, I think that they have been a little limited in terms of how Satan is presented. But I think that's because, you know, our imaginations are a little limited. That's why I would love to see a Lovecraftian Cthulhu-esque demon where I think that, and I don't know how to depict this, but I would like to see a demon that's derived from the human subconscious as opposed to our consciousness. Like, I can imagine Al Pacino being the devil, you know, or somebody. I can imagine a human figure being the devil, but I think the devil would be something out of our subconscious, something out of a dream, rather than something that's so, yeah. Ron C. sends in a super chat and says, classic Star Trek Season 1, Episode 29, The Devil in the Dark. Yes, which is a great episode, but the thing about The Devil in the Dark is that's how we perceive the devil in the dark, and the whole point is it really isn't. The devil in the dark's really an angel. It's really a mother protecting her young. It depends on a certain point of view. Human Kirk sends in a super chat and says, Viggo Mortensen as Lucifer in The Prophecy. Good one. Good one. That is a good. I like the Prophecy movies. I like Christopher Walken. Cardinal Sin Gills here. I've always loved stories of the devil. Rob 666. I love stories of the devil too because he's a great antagonist. He's like the James Bond. He's like the evil Bond of antagonists. Jason S. says there was a noticeable drop in quality on Game of Thrones starting on that first season where they had no book material to rely on. I agree. I think so. They didn't have the books, which makes it a lot more difficult. I agree with you. Wide-eyed Buscemi sends in a tip and says, I stumbled upon a guy on a toilet who is in the midst of an epic OD. His left leg contorted and resembled the number 6, his right leg the same. Also, his C2 vertebrae snapped backwards, his torso contorted into the number 6 as well. His body was literally 666. You know what, dude? That is a horrifying image, and I would like to see that depicted in a movie. As a matter of fact, what's really interesting, I've had 2 projects that I want to make, and they both have the devil in them. The one I'm working on now has the devil in it. Anti-derivative Jill sends in a super chat for $666.66. Again, thank you very much. I don't know if I should use that. Cardinal Sin sends in a super chat and says, happy 6 years and mazel tov on your 666th show. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Fortunato sends in a super chat and says, hail RMB. Hail to you. Congrats on episode 666. Quick question. You worked on a short video that sold to Dust. How can I help you financing a Dust video? I don't know what you're asking. Are you saying you want to finance another film that is sold to Dust? By the way, would you like a Blu-ray and a soundtrack for our film that's sold to Dust? You can send me your email via the whatchamacallit, the website, the Burnettwork.net. Send me I need your address and your name, your address, your phone number, and your email. So send that to me, and I will send you a Blu-ray when they get manufactured. By the way, yeah. So but if you do want to finance a Dust short, I actually have an idea for a short film that I want to make. I don't know if that's what you're asking me. But and help me finance a Dust short, or finance it. Helping would be, it gets kind of tough. Catherine sends in a super chat and says, because I'm a true person with dyslexia, my dollar amount makes sense. Laugh out loud. Love the show. Well, Catherine, thank you for your $9.99 super chat. I appreciate that. I will always see it inverted and know that you're here with the best of intentions. Masturbator the Man King. Does thouest yearn for supple areolas akin to ripe fruitish extremities of dimpled peel, subtly bitten with semi-pernicious force from sharpened knaves of thou grand maven of mischief and meticulous master of mayhem, that is I? Yea for reception, nay for no. Oh, yea. Yes, I yearn for supple areolas akin to ripe fruitish extremities of dimpled peel. Who doesn't? Come on now. So, yes, yay. Sheriff Carl, again, with more 666. I feel honored that you read my letter. I have to show my mom. She was a preschool teacher at my old Catholic school. Also, you should get merch that says, but what can you do? I'd buy that shit for a bunch of dollars. Somebody's got to make me a great piece of artwork that says, well, what can you do? Then I would make that. So there you go. So yeah, I appreciate that. Congrats on 6 great years. I can't believe it. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. Matt Guillemette, did you like the Mobile Suit Gundam Suit Seed series from 2002? It was the first Gundam series I got to watch. I had to wait till 4 or 5 a.m. to watch it. Gundam Seed, I liked some of the mecha designs. It wasn't, to tell you the truth, it wasn't my favorite of the Gundam shows, but the mecha designs are cool. Let's see, as a matter of fact, what can I tell you? Let's see, I have to look. Because there's one of them. I want to get it right. I want to get the name of it right. So, yeah, the is it Isle Strike Gundam? I like, yeah, the Strike Gundams are cool. Those are that was the one I liked, and those are cool. That's a good that's a good mobile suit. I do like that. The Freedom Gundam, good stuff. I think I have right behind me. Well, I can't grab it, but I do have one of those right behind me. Matt goes on to say, I had to blackmail my friend on helping him with a painting job so he can watch Fast 9 with me. Do you think it will be better than Star Wars 9? Well, for those of you, I can't believe I was on the John Campy show this morning, and they dropped the trailer for Fast 9. I have to say this. I love seeing Han with a big gun rescuing some of our characters, but I have to say that people laugh. Fast 5 to me is still my favorite movie because even though I know it strains credulity, I still think it kind of was set on Earth as opposed to these new movies. I mean, Fast 7, 8, and 9 and Hobbs and Shaw have spun off into oblivion. And this movie, it looks so ridiculous that even I, that am a unabashed lover of these movies, I just don't know if I can hang with how ridiculous they've become. But I can't wait to see it. It looks like a hoot. James sends in a tip and says, Doom Eternal is an amazing game, so badass, and you get to take down hell as Doom guy. I love The Shining, Kubrick's Shining, but he's my favorite director. What's your favorite Kubrick film? Oh my God, James, Kubrick is my favorite director too. But, oh gosh, they're so different, but my favorite Kubrick films are A Clockwork Orange, Barry Lyndon, Dr. Strangelove, 2001. Those are my favorites. But I like The Shining. Louis Terrasa said, Rob, I know this isn't on topic, but I have to ask. You say on Campy Show all the time how Dune is your ultimate property. Okay, how come it's so hard to adapt? It seems like some super early views say it's so-so. Help me understand as I'm hyped for it. Well, I think Dune is just a difficult story because it's not as action-oriented as people think. It's much more political. It's ecological. It's mythical. But as a film, it doesn't have all of the kind of set pieces that it's more cerebral, and it's tough to make it. I mean, there's a lot of incredible imagery, and don't get me wrong, it's not like there's no action in it, but it's a lot of it's internalized, and it's hard to make it a story that flows like, say, a big blockbuster movie would flow. So I think it's tough. It's tough. And that's why, look, I'm hyped for it. People have said mixed things. But I don't believe those people because when they say mixed things, maybe it's for them a little too heady and intellectual, so they don't dig it, which is always a problem. So I have to wait and see. I think it's going to be, look, I really like Blade Runner 2049, but there's a lot of things in it that people pointed out to me that make it maybe not as great as I think it is, but I enjoy it. And I think Denis Villeneuve is an I mean, Sicario, Prisoners, Sicario, Incendies, Arrival, Blade Runner 2049, and Dune. I think he's a master filmmaker, so I know I'm going to enjoy it. I just don't know if it'll make any money. I'd like to see it make money because I'd like to see all 3 movies made, at least the Paul Atreides story. I really would. Justin Jorgensen says, hey, Rob, sorry I couldn't moderate today. That is okay, but I wanted to know what you think of the DC animated universe. Superman, the animated series, is amazing. I love Superman, the animated series. I love Batman, the animated series. I love the Justice League Unlimited series. You know, Batman, Brave and the Bold. The DC animated universe for TV is amazing. The movies are a little bit more hit and miss for me, but I dig them. Well, listen, everyone, that brings me to the end of this DKG Custom says, send me a contract. I'll sign it, you devil. Well, you're the devil. I mean, look, I don't just want to, I need, what I want is I want at least like $500 million to make all the movies I want to make until I die. I want my life, I want to have my age frozen 10 years ago so I can be, you know, in my mid early 40s, you know, and then I want to be able to make like the movies I want to make, and I want to live for 1,000 years at least, because I want to see where we're going. Although maybe you'll make me live for 1,000 years and there'll be a nuclear apocalypse and everyone on Earth will die but me, and that would suck. Because then for 1,000 years, what am I going to do? I mean, that would really be... What would you do? It would be horrible. So that wouldn't be good. I wouldn't like that. But Justin, there you go. Masturbator the Man King says, I heard that Han in F9 is a state-of-the-art android made from the pieces of old car parts. The final scene of the film ends with Han snapping his fingers, rocket boosters emerge from the soles of his feet, and he rockets to the moon for F10. Well, we saw in the trailer there's some kind of device that looked pretty close to them getting to space. I don't know what that is. It looked pretty close to me. So you never know. And on that note, everyone, this, the 666th show of Robservations, is over. I want to thank everybody who supports this channel for 500. Don't want to sneak any in on there. For the 5 million views we now have on the channel, for the audience that we have, for people who become members of the channel, for you regular viewers, for the people that listen to the podcasts, I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I wouldn't be doing this without the greatest audience on YouTube. Thank you. I want to thank my moderating staff, beginning with my partner, Mike Bodden, with the Richard and all of the moderators that are here. Robert Pariso is here. Bunyan Snipe. Louise X. I love Louise X. Miss Sparrow. I always forget the Sparrow. I just want to call her Louise X like she's an X-Man or an X-woman. I don't know who else is here. Joshua Levesque, although he's probably not here. All of you who are here, thank you for supporting the channel in the way that you do. I want to thank everybody who supports the channel generously through tips and super chats, and also writing letters. Letters to the Burnettwork.net. Anybody can write me a letter free of charge, whatever. I have a big backlog of letters. If I don't read your letter, by the way, don't take it personally. I'm getting so many letters now that, and a lot of them sometimes are redundant. I try and pick letters that are things I haven't dealt with yet or whatever. But keep writing in and all those things. And we are going to finish the film festival. I know I keep saying that, but now I'm finally getting out from under. I have one call tomorrow. We'll see where we're at after that call. That maybe I won't have time, but we're going to finish the film festival. We got awards to give out. We got stuff to show, and we're going to do that. And the short story competition, we're going to be relaunching that idea. I'm going to be making a video explaining the whole short story competition. That's it's just all been pushed back, and I profusely apologize to that. But hey, you know, I made up the film festival on the show one day, and I was amazed at the outpouring of talent. So you will be rewarded. Don't worry. And we are gonna have the show, and we're gonna celebrate the film festival, and we are gonna have things like the Star Trek show that Elizabeth and I are gonna do, and we're gonna do more whining about movies. Things are coming, and the 700th show is coming. Now, for the 700th show, can I go? What is that? 60? So that's what, 13 hours? I kind of want to try it. See, if I get enough interviews, then I can, pre-recorded interviews that I get done, I can bank them so I can go 13 hours. That would be the plan. Because that, right, 7 times 6, would that, or 7, wait a minute, no, that's not true. 700 minutes is how many hours? I have to figure that out. Why am I'm getting it wrong? Hang on. Let's see. I want to make sure that this is correct. So, clear. I know. Let me figure this out. I know. People are like, Rob, it's this. So it's 11 hours. It's 11.6 hours. I can do that. So we'll have a 700-minute show, and that'll be in 34 days. That gives me 34 days to get enough of the 700 show interesting interviews like I did for the 400th. People like Brian Fuller, and that was a great show. So for the 700th show, I will make it 11 and a half hour show. We'll plan on that, and that's 34 days from now. Wow, we'll do that. So thank you. And on that note, I will say, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear, and all you have to do is listen. And tomorrow we have a Willow Yang letter that you're not going to want to miss because it's a great one. And I say to everyone, oh, hang on a second. S. Beam says, thank you, Rob, and thank you, moderators. S. Beam says he's almost done with his action figures of us. Can't wait to see those. Cam became a member. So Cam, do the Cam. Thanks for becoming a member of the channel. By the way, we will be having another, for all you members, another Zoom chat this weekend. Love those Zoom chats with members and moderators. We're going to have another Zoom chat. I love those Zoom chats. I mean, we should make them go longer, and I'll probably do the Midnight Metal shows have been pretty good. I'm looking for an interesting guest. I mean, with Midnight Metal, people actually just want me to get drunk and freeform it, or it's easier for me and I get less drunk if I have somebody on the show to go with me. But I thought last week's show was really, really good. The ones we did, Tom from Midnight's Edge came on and Dave Parker came on. So thank you, gentlemen, for doing that. And okay. So, on that note, Robservations, episode 666 is done. It's behind us. Somehow Satan got behind me. Look for the final version of the playlist to go up before midnight tonight. The current version's up there now, but there's a whole new playlist with all new additions that you will listen to. It's already 6 hours and something long. I think the final version's 10 hours or something. 10 hours of satanic songs, but thanks to all of you. And on that note, have a better day.